Hey, welcome back to Evil's Comics. I'm Evil Mike, and I got a review for you today. From Image Comics, we are talking about Lorenzo D. Felici's Kroma #1, a book that I was steadily waiting for. I kept getting pushed back, but it is in my hands today. And let's talk about it. It was fantastic. The art, everything, but we'll get there. It was created, written, and art, letters, all that by Lorenzo D. Felici. Show you the back cover, is pretty dope. The chroma, for those of y'all that don't know, is when a person has multicolored eyes. Color plays a huge part in the story. A fantastic part of the story. It's really dope what he did with it. But this was simply a cover by. I mean, I was intrigued by the name and by this cover. I didn't really do any more investigation after that. I just kind of was hoping it was going to turn out to be a cool read, and guess what? It was, in my opinion. But let's get into it. So the book starts out, and it's basically like this pretty bird being hunted by this kind of, it looks vulturous at first, but we see it's just a little bigger bird with a ferocious looking beak, but it is a bird that's going to eat another bird, and it does attack it in the sky. Sadly, it looks like the bird, nature, it was taken out. The bird does fall to the ground. It is found by a kid. And that's kind of the story jumps over. It jumps over to our main story setup, but we do find out later on what was going on in those first couple of panels. But we kind of meet our story's main character or secondary character, Z. Z is with a couple different friends. We learned that this city is called the Pale City, and if you haven't noticed at this point, the book is pretty much like, I wouldn't say black and white, but it is definitely pale to, mimic the name of the city. But they are going to this ceremony that's being taken place that happens, I think it's once every, they say 8 moons or something like that. But basically it's a ceremony that happens maybe once a month or something like that. You find out that these boys, Z and the other 3 boys that he's with, I don't think we get names on them, but they're basically called Makas, and they are in training to be a Makavi. The Makavi is the leader of the Pale City. He is seen here with the cool looking horns and stuff. We do find out later on, he's right here too. We do find out later on that the Makavi is just a person, and he has a whole bunch of clay that's in his hair. But back to the ceremony, you can see that it is a giant egg that's being held by chains. There is some conversation about, the boys are excited to see the monster, and they're not allowed to look in the monster's eyes. If they do, it'll make you go crazy. If the monster manages to bite you, you could possibly turn into one of the monsters. But we do get to the ceremony, and basically that's kind of where we learn about the Pale City. We hear about this King of Colors, and kind of a little bit why, that the King of Colors is bad, and they kind of, sum up the point that colors in this world is bad. It's supposed to take place at the last of humanity, and supposedly the King of Colors ruled over all men at one time, and there was color everywhere, and one day a greedy person came along and did something with the King of Colors, and now the King of Colors wants every human on Earth dead, kind of thing. And that's why we have this last city called the Pale City. After giving us this little brief explanation, the Makavi does tap his little cane on the egg, and out pops, you can see this monstrous bony hand that pops out. It is mentioned to the crowd that they are supposed to allow our monstrous new character some leadway. They're basically going to hunt this thing down but they are expressed not to kill it, only to injure or maim or hurt, kind of thing. Instantly, as soon as this thing escapes the egg-looking trap that it was in, you can see it takes off, all parkour style. Parkour, parkour. Um, it gets a little bit on top of some of the buildings, and that's when the crowd kind of, goes into it. And like I said, it's not all full black and white. There is some color. It's just the book is very, very, like the name of the city, pale. But they get more into that a little bit later. But basically, they let this thing get a little bit, away, and then they basically mob, gang mob this thing, and they beat the hell out of it. As they're toting it away, our main character Zeet happens to catch the face of the creature, even though he wasn't supposed to, when he find out that it was just a mask. And underneath there is a girl with a blue colored eye. As soon as Zeet sees this eye, for some reason, he goes back to the memory of his mother, and we find out who is a witch that, for some reason was in captivity. We see that bird from the beginning of the story, and it looks like that's where the bird fell, and in that story, like it fell into her hands. And that might be the reason they claimed her to be a witch, because she was able to produce the color, the dead bird. After this, the ceremony kind of ends. The Maccabee kind of tells the kids, hey, we'll clean this up, and y'all meet me back in the chambers. And Zeet specifically goes to the Maccabee, and he tells the Maccabee of his dream, and about how, like, seeing the eye made him remember his mom, even though he doesn't really remember his mom. The Maccabee thanks him basically for, his allegiance and his honesty, but kind of tells him that that's one of his big problems, that he's supposed to be, he's like the highest out of the recruits to be the next Maccabee, and now because he has these doubts and he's seeing color, the current Maccabee doesn't think, basically he's lining up. He's kind of, failing some checklist items here. But basically he is told to forget about the dream, to never bring it up, and he is given like a pomegranate and sent on his way. They do show the boys, and they're kind of talking about the celebration. The other three kids are all excited, and they didn't really get a look at the monster, but I mean, the whole, commotion of everything was very exciting to them. Zeet eventually is like, shut the hell up, let's just go to bed, because he's kind of ashamed of how the Maccabee, was because the Maccabee was kind of upset that the dude was dreaming of color, and not only that, but dreaming of his mom, who's supposed to be a witch or something like that. We see in the middle of the night that Zeet cannot sleep. He ends up grinding the pomegranate, and he goes to this tower, and we find out that's the tower where they are keeping the beast, or the monster. It is solely guarded by this one guy, and Zeet ends up giving the pomegranate to the soldier, and basically it's like a transaction, like, hey, if you, and then the soldier is really, he's like, man, I haven't seen a pomegranate forever. The next setup is so dope, because he goes in there, and of course there's no light, and they don't do colors and stuff. But they do go in there, and he has this conversation with the monster, and it's basically like, hey, you can talk, do you want me to talk? Oh, and it's this back and forth, because she's not really sure of what she is, besides what they have told her. That they told her during the celebration, that the Maccabee kind of mentions that they captured her, that the King of Colors sent out these beasts, and she is one of the beasts that they captured, and they've had it captured ever since. The conversation back and forth, and you have to pay attention to the bubbles, like one way goes to Z, the other way goes to our monster. And it's basically like, hey, oh, are you here to hurt me? No, I'm not here to hurt you. Oh, well, everybody comes here to hurt me. Why do they hurt you? Oh, I'm supposed to deserve it because I'm this monster. And basically Zed is like, well, what happened to your, with your eyes? How come it made me think of your mom? And she was, she's basically like, I didn't mean to do that. I think that's something you did on your own. And he finally asked her to kind of come into the light, and she does, and he realizes that she doesn't just have one colored eye, she has the multicolored, the blue and green. And he is kind of weirded out by it. Not only that, but he's also weirded out that she's a little girl, because it's the first time that he sees her in the light besides what he saw under the mask. At the same time as he's kind of like scared and running out of the room, he also sees the mask on the ground, and that's what it was all along. Like I said, he runs out of the room. The guard's kind of weirded out that he leaves so soon. And the next day, he shows up, and he kind of tries to play it off. The Maccabee can tell that something is not quite right with Zeke. Zeke is asked to, they're kind of like doing scripture or lessons or whatever, and he's supposed to recite this history, and it's basically the book, kind of telling us what's going on. So the King of Colors, he ruled all at that time, just like we do now. There were colors all over the world, and it says that one day this greedy man came up and decided to create his own color. The king felt betrayed, and by this betrayal, that's when he made the decree to kill all humans. And he basically made these, like, he calls it the plague of lizards. And the lizards are these creatures that can only see colors. So that's how they kind of came up with the Pale City. Inside the Pale City, they have masked it with like grays, whites, blacks, and everything inside the city, like hair, food. They coat their food with this chalk kind of stuff. But they show you right here in the story the plague of lizards, and basically that's any kind of color, which we have blood inside us and stuff like that. The book kind of jumps over, because as this is going on, Zeke is kind of thinking about our monster, and he's like reflecting on a dream with his mom. They walk out to the wall, and that's when they see like that there still are a forest around the Pale City, but it's kind of mentioned that there's a good distance between the forest and the Pale City to keep the giant lizards away, kind of thing. They show you more detail, like how far it's away over here from the city. But they kind of explain at this point that that's why, like, they go through the city and they coat everything with this sacred white chalk, like the food, their hair. They see it like a curse as a child being born with like blonde hair or red hair or something like that, because then they have to pale down that person. It's kind of a neat and unique idea. Later on that night, Zeke waits, and he goes back to the tower where our monster friend is being held. This time telling the guard that he will give him something better if he allows him to see the girl. We see this time he does bring a candle, and they mention it's called the White Flame. Somehow they managed to like have a candle without. I mean, we kind of have that, right? I think so. But basically at this point it's like a conversation about like who the girl is and what she's supposed to be. He knows the story of what the village has told him, but as far as what he's learning from the girl, it's not lining up. She's just a girl with multicolored eyes. But as far as the girl remembers, she doesn't really remember anything. Just basically they've been kind of brainwashing her, like, oh, you're this monster, but supposedly she hasn't hurt anybody, and like they captured her before, they captured her before she could start hurting people or something like that. The next day, they take like a field trip, and it's with the Maccabees, like I guess like a priest or something like that. He's showing here with the hat, and basically they're taking the Maccabees on a training session. They're supposed to be going out into the lizard country to go farm for some food and stuff like that. They do make it out to this river. When they make it out to the river, the priest ends up killing the farmer that was traveling with them, that they're supposed to be getting food from. The farmer is like, his throat is cut, and then after that, basically, blood sprays on Zeke and the ground and everything. The kids are kind of taken back, and they're like, what the hell? And then he explains that this was the Maccabees like lesson for them, that for this basically the Maccabee knows that this is going down, that he was supposed to kill the farmer because the farmer was skimming from their drop-offs or something like that, and it was supposed to be a training situation for the kids, and they quickly find out. But this is the first time we see the giant lizards, because they quickly show up at the hint of color, the blood on the ground basically. We do see that they have like these reddish looking eyes, and they are giant, monstrous, crocodile looking lizards. But basically at this point, the preacher and I'm calling him preacher, he's not known as a preacher or something like that. I want to say he could be like a knight or a sheriff, or who knows. But basically, like, they all take off running. He tells the kids that they better get moving. They end up using the ox that were supposed to carry the food and everything. They use them as bait for the big crocodiles. Like, at one point, the like sheriff or whatever ends up like killing one of the ox just to use it as bait, so that the giant lizards go after them. But they basically run back into town. They all make it back safe. At this point, they are greeted by the Maccabee, and they're kind of explained that this was the lesson they were supposed to learn. They can't be the Maccabee without like having a firm grip on fear, and they have to know what's out there, kind of thing. So it was supposed to be like a controlled situation with these giant lizards, which I thought was pretty dope. I mean, up until this point, the book kind of sets it up as like, you know, kind of like The Village, the movie, where it's like, it's this leader and he's telling these humans, hey, this is how the world works, and they're just believing it. No, there really are giant lizards out there that are trying to kill humanity, you know, and they can only see color. So it was a really cool surprise getting to that point. But basically, we have a private conversation with Zeke and the Maccabee, and it's basically explaining that, you know, that all these like doubts on like colors and stuff like that. During the trip, Zeke was talking with his friends in the background before the preacher killed that guy, and he was basically explaining how he thought all the colors were beautiful. He didn't see the reason to fear them, but that was before the giant lizards show up. This is all kind of expressed here because it's found out that the other kids actually go back to the Maccabee and tell him everything that Zeke says, because basically it's kind of illegal to talk that way about colors and being beautiful and not scary and stuff like that. But after that, he just goes back to his room. He explained they're supposed to go to dinner, and he's not really hungry. Eventually explains to his friends that he can't really sleep or eat, and he asks one of his friends for like the sleeping potion that he supposedly has a little bit of. Eventually Zeke goes back to the tower, and he ends up giving the soup and the sleeping potion mixed inside the soup to the guard, because he was supposed to bring him something better the next time he came. The guard does make a comment about it. He was like, I thought it was going to be something cooler than soup. And Zeke just explains that it's a magical soup, and technically it is, right? So he goes inside with Kroma, and they do the conversation, and basically we find out that Zeke unlocks her and takes her outside. Thus, and we find out her name is Kroma, or that's what the town has been calling her. We find out also that she has never seen what she looks like, because during the conversation, Zeke also mentions that one of her eyes is blue, and at this point that we're seeing right now, he can finally explain that that's the other color of her eye, green. But basically at this point, they're kind of just, they're sitting out, and she's never really seen the world like this. She's only been in the Pale City. So he's kind of like just sitting here and explaining like, hey, that's a green, that's an orange, over there that's a brown, that's a blue. And that's all they're doing, and they're kind of just, explaining, the colors and stuff like that, and then how the Pale City has set up this world where colors are forbidden and illegal. And not only that, but if you have color, it can bring death upon the city and stuff like that. She kind of mentions that she's not supposed to be out there, and it doesn't feel right. Even the air hurts her, and it's because it's cold outside. Our dude Zeke eventually gives her like a sweater, and as soon as he gives her the sweater, this is where the book leaves us off with a major cliffhanger. And somebody has harpooned our dude Zeke through the chest, collar, and that's kind of where the book leaves us off. There is a dope cover to the second issue, and right before that there is a detailed reason why our guy Lorenzo de Felici came up with this story, how long he's been working on it. I think he says like 15 years. But oh my god, this was fantastic. I mean, setting up this idea where colors are forbidden, but how they pull it off and use it in the book, I thought it was very interesting, engaging. There's so many words I could use to describe this, but for me it worked on so many levels. I mean, you try and make color like kind of a villain, and it's like, how do you do that? This book does it excellent. So it almost reminds me of A Quiet Place, where it was like, they couldn't make sound because the monsters were attracted to the sound. There's some other stuff that I didn't go into about how Kroma is only appearing like this because that's the way he wants to see her. It's kind of one of the mysteries of the book. Is she gonna turn into one of those monsters, giant lizards kind of thing? I don't know, but man, this book was fantastic. I loved it, especially for a first issue. I'm really engaged to see where the second issue goes at. It does have a high price tag at the $7.99, but it's definitely worth every penny. But hey, that's my review. Definitely let me know if you picked this up. What did you think about it? Your thoughts on where it's going to go. Let me know whatever the hell you want to let me know. I love comments. They're my favorite part of doing the engagement. But hey, that's what I got for you. I do have some more reviews coming, at least one more today. And I don't know, that's what I got for now. Please like, comment, subscribe. Please comment, and I will see y'all guys later. Have a great weekend, or whenever you happen to catch this on the rewind. Alright guys, bye!